This video is for algebra over topic 6-1 through direct variation. Your test grades have been entered online through Hack. Now is not the time to look through and find them. At the end of the notes, if you need a quick brain break, you can take it and look up your grade, or when I come back tomorrow, I can show you your grade in class. Today we are starting on the packet, so make sure you have your notes packet and that you also picked up the 6-1 assignment on your way in. Also, please make sure you have a calculator. If you don't have any of those things, then the sub can pause the video and you can get them now. For direct variation, we have a couple things that are already filled in for us, so please make sure you're paying attention. Direct variation is a function in the form of y equals kx, where k is not 0. K is called the constant of variation or the coefficient of x, so it is the number that comes before x. An equation is a direct variation if the graph of the line passes through the origin, so if my y-intercept is 0, 0, and it can be written in the form of y equals k to the x. K is your slope, which is exactly like m. And in your equation, there is nothing that follows x. So we were dealing with y equals mx plus b. This is pretty much the same thing, but b does not exist, and m has a new letter of k. Don't let that confuse you. As long as there's nothing in your equation that follows x, you're fine, and as long as you have a slope, you're fine. It's another way to describe a proportional relationship where y varies directly with x. So problem 1 has been done for you. We have a table, so like I said, anytime you have 2 points or a table, you are immediately going to go to stat edit. When I did this, I got a m or a k value of 6. My y-intercept or my b value was 0. My equation is just y equals 6x. So this is an example of direct variation because my y-intercept is 0, 0. You could also say because b equals 0. So we're going to do problem 2 together. Make sure you are doing this in your calculator and writing this down with me. We have a table, so I'm going to go to stat edit. And I'm going to put this table in my notes exactly like I see it. I'm sorry, put this table in my calculator exactly like I see it. So I see, -3, 1, and 3 on the x's, 0, 3, and 6 on the y's. So I take the table on my paper and make it look like my calculator. Then I click Stat Calc 4, and this is what I got. Now I'm just going to round because when I try to type this in for a calculator or for a fraction, it turns out really ugly. So 964, and my y-intercept is 2.78. I'm not really paying close attention to that because that's really all I need. So my equation is going to be my k value with x, and then my y-intercept follows. This is not an example of direct variation because my b value exists. Or you could say because the y-intercept is 2.78, you could say because there is a value after x. As long as you mention something about there being a b value, that's all we need. So for problem 3, they ask us the same thing. Is this an example of direct variation? In order to see that, I need to solve for y first. Remember that when I solve for y, I move x by doing the opposite operation. So in this case, I am subtracting x from both sides. And then I divide every piece by 2. So when I do that, I get my equation of -5 halves x plus y. And this is an example of a direct variation because there is no y value, or the y-intercept is at 0, 0. So we need to do the same thing for problem 4, and you are doing this one with me. I need to solve for y, so I move 3x to the other side. I remind myself that 12 and 3x, or -3x, excuse me, are not like terms, so I simply rewrite them. And then I divide every piece by 4. So my equation is -3/4 x plus 3. Remember that if this does not simplify, you just leave it as -3 divided by 4. So my k value is -3 divided by 4. My y-intercept is 3. My equation we already found, -3/4 x plus 3. And this, again, is not an example because b equals 3. Because we have a y value, this is not an example of a direct variation. So again, when we look up here, problems 1 and 3 are examples because my b value is 0. 2 and 4 are not examples because my y-intercept or my b value is not 0. It doesn't matter what it is, it matters that it's not 0. So if it's not 0, that's an issue. So problem 3 tells us that it is an example of direct variation. So it means we do have the point 0, 0. So if they give us y equals 24 and x equals 18, what we can do is use 2 points. We have the point 18, 24 because they gave it to me. And then they also told me through direct variation that I would have the point 0, 0. So I plug that into stat edit and do exactly what we just did. Come up with my equation. K is 4/3, y-intercept is 0, 0, which makes sense because that's one of my points. And then I know that I have the equation y equals 4/3 x. So problem 4 tells me that y is going to vary directly with x. Find the missing value. So what I'm going to do is plug into my calculator my full values that I have. Because it is a direct variation, I have the point 0, 0, and then I was also given the point 636. We can't put this one into the calculator because I have a missing value, but I can use my calculator to find that missing value. So I'm going to plug in to stat edit 6 and 36, and then the point 0, 0. So again, I'm plugging into stat edit because I have 2 points, and that is the easiest, fastest, most reliable way when given 2 points. So I click stat calc 4, and my equation is y equals 6x plus 0. So we can just write y equals 6x. Now, we can solve for y by replacing x with what we know x equals. For this one, when I solve, y equals 6 times -3, which is -18. So sometimes they ask you, like they did on problem 3, just to find the equation, but sometimes they want you to take it a step further like we did on 4. They want you to find the equation by using stat edit and then find a missing value. So if you are asked to find y, then you would solve backwards. Then you would solve like normal. If you're asked to solve x, you would solve backwards. We have 2 word problems here. On problem 5, they tell us that the number of hamburgers that can be made varies directly with the weight of the ground beef. 5 hamburgers are made using 2 pounds. Write a function that represents the relationships and find how many pounds you would need for 25 hamburgers. So the order in which this is stated matters. So they tell us that the number of hamburgers varies with the weight. So whatever varies directly is like a depend. So when we wrote dependency statements like y depends on x, y varies directly with x. So whatever varies directly is going to be your y, and whatever it varies with will be x. So we have the point 5 hamburgers, 2 pounds of beef. So 2 is my x because it's weight, and then 5 is my y because it's the number of hamburgers. I take these 2 points, put them into stat edit, and come up with my equation of 5/2 x. The question was, find how many pounds of beef you would need for 25 hamburgers. So find x because that would be the weight when number of hamburgers, or y, is 25. So I plug in 25 equals 5/2 x, divide both sides by 5/2. This part cancels, and x equals 10. So we're going to do the same thing or something similar on 6. The amount of blood in a person's body varies directly with body weight. So amount of blood is my y, body weight is x. So x is weight, y is blood. A person who weighs 160 pounds has about 4.6 quarts of blood. What equation could be used to represent this and find how many quarts of blood are in the body? So let's do our equation first. Because this is a direct variation, we always have the point 0, 0. And then using this sentence right here, weight is my x value and quarts of blood is my y value. If That's why I write it here, so I know where to put what number. So I'm going to go stat edit and get my equation. So 160 and 4.6, and then I still have the 0.00. Doesn't matter if it's on top or on the bottom, as long as you are consistent in putting 00 together and 164.6 together. So stat calc 4, and anytime you see something like this with an e value, e to the negative 16, that means 0, okay? Now I'm going to take 0.02875, which is my a value, math, enter, and turn it into a fraction, so that's 23 over 800x. Now the question is asking us if the weight, so if x equals 208.7, how many quarts of blood? So they want us to find y. So to solve, I'm going to plug in 208.7 for x because I'm replacing it with x. Plug it into my calculator and solve. So 23 over 800 times 208.7, and we get about 6 quarts of blood. Okay, so again, direct variation means you have no y value. If you have no y value, or like no b value, no y-intercept, you have a y value, Direct variation means you have no y-intercept. So when you write your equations, it should always be y equals mx, or in this case, k is replacing m. But y equals your slope times x, and then if you have a direct variation, remember you have the 0.00 given to you, so we can use that to plug into stat edit anytime we are given points and solve. The rest of class should be used to find or to finish your assignment 6-1. You have just a couple problems on there, and I am expecting it to be done when I get back. If you finish, a stamp has been left for the sub and she can stamp you. Please tell her how we normally stamp because I did not explain that to her. So be honest and be real. Also, if you have any questions, the sub has the key so she can help you with that as well if you get stuck on a problem. I expect you to be on your best behavior, and I am looking forward to good sub notes when I get back. Remember that the sub will give you your candy when you are good at the end of class.